Could Deathstroke survive the Punisher? I think it should be, can the Punisher survive Deathstroke? It's not. This isn't a question. Deathstroke is easily clapping Punisher. He has a healing factor too. I know it's not like that strong, but it's still pretty good, I think. I don't know of Punisher having any crazy like healing or anything, or he's just infinite anger. Like he's literally like the Doomslayer, but super just ground human based. And to be going up against Deathstroke, I mean, he's going up against somebody who fights Batman for a living. So, I mean, and the Punisher isn't surviving that big. I don't know. You guys let me know down in the comments below what you guys are thinking. Could Deathstroke survive the Punisher? Other way around. But sure, yeah, of course.
Deathstroke against the world's most stubborn vigilante, Frank Castle, the Punisher. We're analyzing the physics of their gear and the biology of their durability to see who actually walks away from a fight to the death. Here's the loadout. Deathstroke brings his signature Prometheum armor, energy lance, broadsword, and regenerative healing factor. Frank Castle brings an M60, a Barrett 50 caliber sniper, frag grenades, a Kevlar titanium suit, and his
if he takes the Barrett to Deathstroke's mitt, maybe he won't recover from that. Like, maybe he doesn't recover from that. Highly doubt he's going to use the Barrett to go for his head, though.
Or van. We drop them into a derelict industrial district on the Gotham-New York border. Can tactical genius and super soldier biology overcome absolute suicidal determination? The engagement doesn't begin with a monologue. It begins with physics. Slade is tracking a target through a narrow alleyway. Unaware he has walked into a kill box designed by a man who hunts paramilitaries for sport. 300 meters away, atop a rusting
They're not making it.
water tower. Frank Castle exhales. He squeezes the trigger of a Barrett M82. The bullet is a 50 caliber BMG round, leaving the barrel at 2,800 feet per second. A standard 9mm round delivers about 500 joules. This 50 caliber carries approximately 18.
Deathstroke is also fast too. He's quick. So he might be dodging bullets quick too. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like he is though.
2,000 joules, concentrated into an area the size of a coin. When the round strikes Deathstroke's chest plate, in DC lore, depleted promethium is a volatile metal that actively absorbs energy. Scientifically, we can model this as a shear thickening lattice structure, similar to non-Newtonian fluid but on a molecular level. Upon impact, the atomic bonds tighten instantly, dispersing the kinetic load laterally across the entire suit rather than letting it focus on one point. The armor effectively drinks the 18,000 joules, preventing penetration, but the laws of thermodynamics are strict. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transferred. This brings us to back-face deformation and blunt force trauma. Even if the armor catches the bullet, the kinetic energy creates a shock wave that travels through the plate and into the torso. For a normal human, this impact would liquefy the organs behind the sternum. The heart would bruise, the lungs would collapse, and the ribs would shatter into shrapnel. However, Slade isn't normal. His bone density is enhanced, effectively reinforcing his skeletal structure like biological carbon fiber. Slade survives the shot because his enhanced reflexes allow him to roll with the impact the microsecond he feels the strike. He doesn't take the full 18,000 joules dead on. He deflects about 40% of it, but he is still winded, he's bruised, and he is now in the kill box.
Think about that. He's that quick to the point where as soon as he feels the impact, he can instantly deflect it, like as he's feeling the impact, and almost kind of deflect it, if that makes sense. That's crazy that he's that quick though. Just normally. Damn.
Before he can recover, the second phase of the trap activates.
I hope
Frank
that made
didn't just
sense.
bring a gun, he rigged the alley with claymore mines. A standard M18 claymore contains 1.5 pounds of C4 explosive and 700 steel ball bearings. When detonated, these spheres fly out at 3,937 feet per second. Frank detonates 2 of them simultaneously.
I be feeling like I don't be making sense sometimes. So I just gotta know. I don't know.
Here, we analyze overpressure. The explosion creates a wave of high-pressure air that moves faster than sound. For a human, 5 to 10 psi of overpressure can rupture eardrums. 30 to 40
Damn.
psi can kill you by imploding your lungs. Slade's armor protects his skin from shrapnel. The promethium mesh catches the steel balls effortlessly, but the pressure wave hits him like a sledgehammer. His enhanced durability mitigates the internal bleeding, but his capillaries are bursting. Has to kick in immediately to repair micro tears in his lung tissue. He's coughing up blood, but he's moving. He identifies the sniper nest location based on the acoustic delay of the gunshot. He launches a grapple line, bypassing the kill zone and closing the vertical distance to the roof. Frank sees him coming. He abandons the sniper rifle. It's too heavy for close quarters, and switches to his secondary weapons. The distance has closed from 300 meters to 0. So how do we grade this opening encounter? Slade took a hit to vaporize a normal human's torso and walked through an explosion that turns concrete to dust. He's alive, but his armor is stressed, and his biological resources are already being taxed to repair internal bruising. He survived, but he didn't dominate. Tier of survival, grade B. Survived, but compromised. Slade Wilson crashes through the warehouse skylight. He doesn't use the door. Doors are fatal funnels. He drops 30 feet, rolling into a combat crouch amidst a maze of rusted shipping containers and industrial shelving. This is the meat grinder. Frank Castle isn't hiding. He's controlling the environment. The movement of Slade's boots hit the concrete. The lights cut out. Total darkness. Then a distinct clink hiss. Flashbangs. 3 of them. A standard M84 stun grenade generates 170 decibels and 70 million candela. For an ordinary human, this causes temporary blindness. But for Deathstroke, it's worse. Slade utilizes 90% of his brain capacity, meaning his sensory input is dialed up to 11. He can hear a pin drop 3 rooms away and see a finger twitch before the trigger is pulled. Here is the scientific drawback. Sensitivity equals vulnerability. When you overload a system running at maximum gain, the feedback loop is catastrophic. The 170 decibel blast hits Slade's heightened auditory cortex like a physical blow. The 7 million candela flash burns retinas designed to capture more light than yours or mine. For 3 seconds, the world's greatest tactician is paralyzed by his own super senses. Frank capitalizes immediately. He steps out from behind a forklift, racking a Remington 870 shotgun. But he isn't firing a buckshot. He's loaded Dragon's Breath rounds. These are magnesium-based incendiary cells. When fired, they create a jet of flame reaching 3,000 to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Slade is now wearing an oven. The suit's internal temperature spike. His skin begins to blister under the mesh. The oxygen in the immediate area is consumed by the fire, suffocating him. Slade has to move, forcing him to charge through flames. His regenerative factor already working overtime to knit together second-degree burns on his face and neck, where the armor seals are thinnest. He lunges at Frank, swinging his broadsword with enough force to cleave the shotgun in half. Frank draws a combat knife, blocking the follow-up strike with a desperate two-handed brace. The sheer mass of the super soldier drives Frank to his knees. Slade raises the sword for the kill. The east window shatters. 2 shots ring out, sparking off Slade's helmet. Standing on the catwalk is Jason Todd, the Red Hood. This changes the map entirely. We're now looking at a chaotic 3-way engagement.
What are you
Jason
doing
is here
here?
to save Frank. He's here to claim the bounty on Slade. But for the next 30 seconds, the enemy of my enemy is a temporary ally. Now we have to calculate the combat variables. Slade's reaction time is enhanced. He processes visual information in about 20 milliseconds compared to 200 milliseconds for an average human. He can physically see the trajectory of the gun barrel's movement. However, physics dictates that seeing the bullet and moving your entire body are 2 different things. Slade is 225 pounds of muscle and armor. Inertia is real. With Frank firing from the ground and Red Hood raining 9mm fire from the high ground, the volume of fire creates a statistical probability of 100% impact. Slade cannot dodge everything. He has to prioritize. He angles his armor to deflect the lethal shots to his heart and head, accepting the non-lethal hits to his limbs. But the meat grinder demands a pound of flesh. In the chaos, Frank sees the opening. While Slade is parrying Red Hood's gunfire with his sword, a feat of superhuman dexterity, Frank drives his combat knife into the one weak point of the Promethean suit. the articulation gap behind the knee. The blade severs the hamstring. Slade roars, a sound of pure animalistic rage. The healing factor will fix this, but it takes time. Time he doesn't have. He grabs a tear gas canister from his belt, pulls the pin, and spikes it at his feet. Smoke floods the room, mixing with the magnesium smoke. Slade vanishes into the gray haze, dragging his wounded leg, forcing his body to climb the service ladder toward the roof. He's bleeding, burned, and limping. Tier of survival, grade C-. Critical damage taken. Saved.
C-.
We have got
A different world. The fire below has turned the ventilation stacks into chimneys, spewing black smoke into a freezing Gotham downpour. The sudden temperature shift creates a thick, swirling fog. Red Hood is gone, kicked over the edge in the scramble up the ladder, tumbling into the harbor below. He'll survive, but this fight belongs to the heavyweights now. It's just Slade Wilson and Frank Castle, standing 10 feet apart on a slick, gravel-covered roof.
Man, Red
Slade's
Hood got
leg is
cooked.
smoking. The heat generated by his accelerated cellular mitosis is reacting with the cold rain. This brings us to the most critical scientific limitation of a healing factor, the caloric cost. In fiction, regeneration is magic. In biology, it's an energy exchange requiring adenosine triphosphate, ATP. Rapid mitosis burns glucose reserves faster than a marathon runner. Slade's body isn't just fighting Frank, it's fighting starvation, burning thousands of calories per minute to repair the burns and severed muscle fibers. Frank charges. He doesn't use finesse, he uses mass. He tackles Slade, driving him into a rusted HVAC unit. The metal crumples. Frank is bleeding from a dozen shrapnel wounds, but he doesn't feel them. This is the difference between healing and pain tolerance. Frank's body is flooding his system with endorphins and adrenaline, effectively turning off the pain receptors in his brain. He's operating on a biological loan that he will have to pay back later with interest. Slade, conversely, feels everything because his nerves are regenerating in real time. They trade blows in the mud. Frank lands a solid right hook to Slade's jaw, cracking the helmet's faceplate. Slade counters with a knee to the gut, but it lacks his usual explosive power. Why? Because of hypovolemia, blood volume loss. Even if Slade's flesh knits together, he cannot instantly regenerate the liters of blood he lost downstairs. Blood carries oxygen. Without enough blood volume, his muscles are oxygen-starved. He's suffering from hypoxic fatigue. His strikes are slower. His vision is tunneling. Frank senses the weakness. He pulls a combat knife and goes for the gaps in the armor again, slashing at the armpits and the neck, forcing Slade to burn even more energy on minor repairs. It is a war of attrition, and biologically, the man who doesn't have to heal is currently winning the stamina game. Slade realizes he cannot overpower Frank. The Punisher is a tank running on pure hate. If Slade continues to trade blows, his metabolic reserves will crash, and he will go into shock. He has to stop fighting like a brawler and start thinking like a grandmaster. The turn happens in a split second. Frank lunges for a
Slayer's little brother.
Instead of blocking with strength, Slade simply steps aside, using Frank's own momentum against him. It's a judo throw, executed with perfect energy-efficient geometry. Frank slams face first into the gravel. Before he can scramble up, Slade is there. He doesn't strike to kill, he strikes to disable. Slade drives 2 fingers into the nerve cluster at the base of Frank's neck, the brachial plexus. It's a precise surgical disruption of the nervous system. Frank's arms go numb. The knife clatters to the roof. Slade follows up with a calculated kick to the back of the knee, shattering the joint. Frank goes down, unable to stand, unable to hold a weapon. Slade stands over him, chest heaving, steam pouring off his armor. He could kill Frank. It would be easy now. But the contract was for the target in the warehouse, not the vigilante on the roof. And purely from a survival standpoint, Slade knows he has nothing left in the tank. If he spends another calorie, he passes out. He sheaths his sword. He limps to the edge of the roof, looking back at the man trying to crawl toward him with a broken leg. Slade survived, but he had to use every trick in the book to do it. Tier of survival, grade A. Adapted and overcame. After 3 rounds of escalating violence, what does the data tell us? To answer if Deathstroke survives, we look at 3 pillars: armor, biology, and tactics. First, the armor. The Prometheum suit is the MVP. Without it, the initial 50 caliber BMG round would have ended the fight instantly. The armor absorbed the kinetic energy, thermal shock, and shrapnel, turning lethal events into survivable injuries. If Slade had been wearing standard Kevlar, he would be dead.
Right,
Second,
obviously.
biology. The healing factor is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's the ultimate safety net. It allowed Slade to repair a severed hamstring in minutes and keep fighting through third-degree burns. However, our analysis of the meat grinder and the rooftop fight shows the limitations. Healing is metabolically expensive against an opponent like Frank Castle, who relies on overwhelming volume of fire and attrition. The healing factor almost became a liability. It drained Slade's stamina, forcing him to fight conservatively in the final round.
Okay.
It saved his life, but it nearly cost him the fight due to energy depletion and blood loss shock. Finally, the tactics. This is where the battle was truly won. Frank Castle had the advantage of preparation. He controlled the environment, he set the traps, and he dictated the pace of the engagement. In almost any other scenario, that level of prep time guarantees a win, but Slade Wilson's enhanced brain processing speed allowed him to adapt mid-combat. He analyzed them. He calculated the acoustic delay of the sniper shot to find Frank. He recognized the sensory overload of the flashbangs and adjusted. He identified the metabolic cost of his own healing and switched fighting styles to compensate. Frank Castle is a force of nature. He's a tank that will drive through a brick wall to get to you. But Slade Wilson is a regenerative tank with a supercomputer for a brain. Frank fights until he dies. Slade fights until he wins. The final verdict is clear. The Punisher has the firepower to kill Deathstroke and the durability to make him bleed, but he lacks the biological hardware to outlast him. Slade Wilson survives, but he leaves behind a lot of blood and a lot of pride. It wasn't a clean win, it was a survival scenario. Tier rating final, overall survival grade, S-class, barely. 3 hours later, in a safe house across the river, Slade Wilson staples a wound shut. He pulls up the contract on his tablet, looks at the payout, and hits delete. Not worth the ammo. If you want to see who else stands a chance against the Terminator, maybe Daredevil or Batman, let us know in the comments. Biology can build a super soldier, but trauma builds a monster. And sometimes the monster is just too hard to kill.
Yeah, I can't wait till we get some more freaking on scale of Hulk versus Superman type, like the seismographs. Like, oh my god, dude! Like, I want that.